following is a presentation of ComedyVoices.com.
Welcome, everybody, to the Jewisode. Today we've got Danny Cohen, noted Jew, Ronnie Cohen, noted Jewish brother of Danny Cohen, go-to gay Tommy on the phone, and you got me. Listen up.
Coming to you from the top of the Stand Up New York Comedy Club, this is a Stand Up Labs production, powered by ComedyVoices.com. Find your voice.
You're listening to Crass to Mouth.
The two open micers, please cede to the headliners of this table. Good Lord.
Ever just fucked somebody who wasn't your girlfriend while you were still with a girlfriend? Boom, HPV right up the pussy. It's like when a black person resists arrest and gets shot. Yeah, you shouldn't resist arrest. That doesn't mean that you should die for it. Okay, we're back. Here's the thing, you guys. This is the Zionism episode full of Jews. And who I have with me is the Cohen brothers, Danny Cohen of comedy fame.
Hello.
And his brother, Ronnie Cohen.
Hi.
My brother's in town.
His brother is in town, who hopped on the mic. Thank you, Ronnie, for hopping on the mic for no reason.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. You're welcome. This is going to be so freaking dope. But, anyway, the whole point of this particular episode of Crass to Mouth is because, Danny, I had to have you on since forever to talk about Israel. It's like,
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, so we're going to do this.
Yeah, we're going to do this. I've been
right.
reading up on your shit for a while, Danny.
Uh-huh.
And the reason that I love you so much is because, like me, you're Israeli, right? Like me, you are super pro-Israel, right? Unlike me, you write about it really well. And so whenever there's shit that comes up and people are saying things on Facebook and on the news in ways that are hard to defend, like, you're the one that I look at for the best defense, for a way that, like, people can really relate to.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow. Okay. And it's crazy because I'm not really even, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself so, not pro-Israel because, but I am pro-Israel, you know? It's.
But the alternative is anti.
Right. The alternative is anti or neutral.
But I mean,
right,
I'm not neutral. I'm not neutral on the subject of Israel.
I was neutral for years.
Why?
I was neutral.
What do you mean by that?
Like
could take it or leave it?
No, not take it. I didn't. I wasn't educated on any of the history of Israel since the war, since the independence war, since the nation was born.
Which is where I'm coming from
48.
too. Like, no, very little, embarrassingly little education, almost nothing.
I mean, I went to yeshiva, so I know biblically. You know, we go way back in that country.
Right.
You know, the Jewish country forever and ever and ever.
Right.
Our first temple, the second temple. We've been there for thousands of years. But,
of course.
But politically, what's going on these days is always about since 1948.
Right.
I mean, right. It's for argument's sake.
So here's my problem is that whenever Israel comes up, and I get accused of this on this podcast too and also on Race Wars, is being emotional and dogmatic about Israel, which I am. I am emotional about it.
Okay.
I can't help it
Fair
because
enough.
it feels... People are really aggressive when they talk about Israel, and they seem uninformed, but because I'm also uninformed, but feel that I'm right, then what do I say? Do you know what I mean?
Right. You have to inform yourself.
So you have to inform yourself. Right. And yet I still have this intrinsic feeling of, I know I'm onto something because I don't think that Israel is this evil Zionist entity. I know that I have a point, but then I'm not sure what my point is. Do you know what I mean?
Right. I know what you're saying, and I feel like every country in the world, Israel has its faults.
Of course.
I don't think, the country the government that is today, it's like every other, like the United States. It's not a perfect country. It's a democratic country, but it's not perfect. We have a lot of problems in this country.
But you know what? I feel like when you say Zionism, it's almost like a dirty word. Like when people say Zionism and when they say feminism, it's like if you don't know exactly what it means and people are quick to say, go fuck yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if people are like, well, feminism means you must hate all men. Well, it doesn't mean that. It means equality. So if you believe in equality, then you're a feminist, right?
Right.
If you believe Israel has the right to exist, then you're a Zionist. It's exactly that simple.
Oh, that's very well put. Right. I agree.
Thank you.
Right.
So, but here's my other thing with you. And Ronnie, I don't know your background, but because I follow Danny on Facebook. But you were religious, right? You went to yeshiva and did you also grow up religious? You both were religious?
Yeah, our family, we started off traditional, but then when my father was alive, after my father passed away, my mother became more and more religious. And now my mother, I guess you would title my family, my mom, and my two brothers as Haredi, I guess, which is
intense.
Which is intense, Black Hat or Orthodox, you know.
So where do they live? Jerusalem?
They live in Jerusalem, yeah.
Yeah, she was always plugged in, Mom.
Yeah, always plugged into
even
God.
When she was traditional.
How traditional was she, like with the hair and the tznius, everything?
No, traditional, like secular, almost.
Oh, I
right.
understand. My parents are like that too.
Right, that's how she started out. But, you know, they always had the background in the home where she would, practice traditionally. But as time went along, she always became more and more religious. But that has something to do with Zionism. She was always Zionist at heart because they once came to her in her school when she was 18, and they
back
told
in
her,
Cairo.
In Cairo, they told her that's where she was born and grew up. And a girl came up to her and said, "We're going to kill you soon." And she said, "Why?" She said, "Because you're Jewish." So then she just ignited and she left. She ran away. She told her father, "I'm leaving tomorrow."
And she left.
And she left. Yeah.
Went to Paris.
She went to Paris. She met her father.
And you still have family in Cairo?
No, all the Jews are gone.
There's no Jews in
There's
Cairo.
no Jews in Cairo. All the Jews have left after the Suez Canal, which was what, in 50, when was the Suez Canal? 50.
Suez Canal was 67 was Suez Canal, but no, they left before that.
They left before, but until then by that time they were all
by
out.
56, everyone was already leaving, and 64 was already late. They still had a little bit of community until like 70s, but very minute, older people or people who were able to leave.
Because my family background on my mother's side, which is Israeli, is Iraqi. And both of her parents, mother and father, came directly from Iraq, Iraqi Jews, at like a ridiculously young age, like 17, 18, already married, pregnant. And so I'm, I guess, half Iraqi.
And half what?
And half
Russian,
Romanian, kind of Eastern European, a little
right.
bit of a mix. But that I know directly is, and I know there ain't no Jews left there.
No.
So.
No, in all those countries, actually, yeah. I mean, and you want to talk about, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Jews, and now, if there are any Jews, you're talking about 20 or 30 Jews.
Right.
Like a handful, under 100 Jews.
So here's my big problem is when I'm trying my best to defend Israel, and not to defend every single thing that Israel does, because you can't. And
you know, they have their faults. Like I said, they're not a perfect country. Right.
Definitely not a perfect country, and in the hugely in the public eye. So every fuck up we know and hear about, right? But when I'm trying to defend Israel, it's always hard to make my point because there's so much of a point. You know what I mean? That like all the Jews that were once where your family and my family were are now not there because they weren't allowed to stay there.
No,
so Israel has to exist for that reason. Now, when people say, well, what about the Palestinian right of return? But what about the Jewish right of return to everywhere? We don't have that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
But we do, because we have Israel.
That's right. But I'm just...
We took our chance. When they offered it to us in 48, we said yes, and the Palestinians said no. They said no, thank you. And they didn't take it.
Not only did
they remained refugees until today.
They did that to themselves. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, unfortunately they did. Well, and I hate to blame, when I say they as the Palestinians, I'm not going to blame the people, but their leaders.
I also don't want to sound shitty, right?
Right. It's the leadership. When I say they, it's the leaders. So, and the people who they elected to run their country, their team. So it's sad. It's sad. Imagine if we elected a president here, and then all of a sudden, the president makes a horrible move,
right?
And it's representing us, our country,
as it's always been, though. But hasn't it not always been that anything that a Jew ever did, and black people go through the same shit, don't they? A black person does something, they go, well, this is bad for the blacks.
It's called representing.
Right.
Right. That's why you don't want to wear a yarmulke as an Orthodox Jew and then walk into McDonald's, which is not a kosher restaurant.
Right.
Because if you do that, it's something what they call marat ayin. So you're representing your people, and then you walk in with a yarmulke, you're like, oh, this is wrong. So you want to take off your yarmulke if you're going to go to use the bathroom, or for whatever reason go into McDonald's. So you're representing. It's hard for a black guy because you can't take off your black skin.
That's right.
So you're like it's pressure beyond. I mean, you're always black, so you always have to represent no matter what.
Yeah, that's right.
Much tougher.
It is much tougher. And then when you get to like black Israelis, that's a whole other thing too.
Oh, yes, the black Israelis, they're awesome.
Yeah.
The Ethiopian Jews.
I mean, you know what? I owe Israel a visit so much.
Oh, right. Well, my brother's born in Ethiopia.
Shut the fuck up.
Yes, he's born and not raised.
I'm an Ethiopian
He's
Jew.
an Ethiopian Jew right here.
Do you have an Ethiopian citizenship by virtue of being born there?
My American passport says born in Ethiopia, but it's all I have.
It's wild.
Because our dad worked for the Mossad. He was, worked
What?
in intelligence. Yeah.
Oh my God,
So-
you guys are the Jewiest Jews
Yeah,
I've
we are.
ever met.
This is exactly what you need.
I had no idea what kind of Jews
Children
I
of a
was getting.
Mossad agent will explain to you as much as they can.
When people see my passport, Ethiopia, I tell them my mother is black.
And they believe the shit out of you.
And they look at you like, well, he's got great lips. You're like, oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah, all right. You got some black in you, you know.
You should walk around telling people all lives matter and see what they say. They won't take kindly to it. They don't like that. But so my question is like, okay, religiously, how were you ever like Haredi, or how religious did you guys get?
So I never got as religious as my brothers or as my mom.
Okay.
I was Orthodox though. So
Like modern Orthodox?
yeah, but
or
I was
like,
never black hat. I never
Yeah,
wore
yeah.
black hat, and I was never. I always use the word stark, which is very, very, but extreme. But I was always very modern in anything I did.
And what about you, Ronnie?
I was, yeah. I spent over 10 years in yeshiva.
Yeah.
I'm a mohel.
Oh,
Are you really?
Yes, I am.
can snip it off.
No
licensed-
kidding.
I'm a licensed. I'm a licensed mohel. Yeah. I have a certificate. I
yeah.
can do
He
it.
snipped a couple of my nephews.
Yes, I did.
A licensed wiener snipper?
There
Yep.
you go. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
You guys are, I couldn't have planned this podcast better
Wait,
if
are
I'd
you-
even
Is
tried.
a mohel an accepted English word?
Yeah.
Do people
Sure.
understand-
Well,
people
we're in New
understand-
York, so people are going to
People
understand
understand
it.
what it means. Okay.
They
Yeah.
can Google it. It's mohel. Mohel. Right.
Yeah, it's a wiener snipper.
Right. A wiener snipper.
It's like you're walking in a deli.
Yeah. Now, do you also?
You work out of a bodega, no? We understand.
Yeah. They just go in and go out. Right.
That doesn't sound good. Guys. Okay.
With a baby. Do you know how to slaughter animals also? Or
No, I started that, but I didn't.
Too
I didn't
much.
continue through it. Yeah, I
Why
didn't
did you
get through it.
stop? You just felt
It
bad.
wasn't for me.
Is that
It
too
wasn't
much?
for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me.
Right.
You got to give it your all for that, and I wasn't into it.
Yeah. It's
To learn to be a mohel is really not that. It's not a big. It's not a big issue. You learn it chick-chock.
Chick, chuck, chook. Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
it's quick.
Yeah, it sounds like it might not be. I mean, you know what? I don't. It might not be for me. Can a woman do it, or is that a big no-no?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses'
Yes.
wife, she did her sons.
Oh.
Because Moshe Rabbeinu was in a life-threatening situation.
Bit preoccupied. Yeah.
And no, he almost died on his way to Egypt from Midian. That's where he married his wife when he fled. It says it's a direct script. You can look it up in the Torah. It's over there when he
Well,
left.
that's my problem is that I didn't study the script.
I'll show
How
it to
you guys
I'll,
did.
I'll show it to you if you like. Yeah,
Oh,
when
so
he-
women can do it.
When he left Midian, but it's not accepted so much.
Right,
but
it's not accepted, but you can.
halachically-
Right.
But halachically, it could be done.
Right.
Yes.
So by Jewish law, yes, it can be done.
But then the question is for you guys, then how Jewish are you now? Because like for me, I was raised secularly Jewish, by which I mean like culturally, we're Israeli, so that was really important. I mean, culturally meaning there was never a thing of we're not Jewish. We were Jews. We don't do presents on Hanukkah because that's a Christmas thing, and we don't do that. We're Jews, you know what I mean? And there's never any
Right.
question of that. We, our hearts are with Israel. We've got Israeli flags. We're Jews.
Right.
But not super traditional. And like now my parents are getting more traditional. And then when I was younger, I was like, fuck this shit. Why do I have to do this? Why does anybody get to tell me what to do, especially some man? And then the older I got, the more I appreciated the traditions and being like the traditions tying you to thousands and thousands of years of people doing these things. That's
Right.
beautiful,
It is beautiful.
And that's where I am now. But I'm
Right.
not religious.
No, but I always look at it like that also. I always look at it as a history. Yeah. And
And I'm proud of it. Like, we're still fucking here.
if you think about how amazing it is, the book of law, the book of the Torah
Yeah.
is amazing because if you think of it just from that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
it's been around for, it's the Jews have been around. We're, I think, the oldest. We're probably, forget pagan, because
Yeah,
that's
right.
who are they? I don't know where they are. They say the paganry is the oldest religion in the world, but I don't know what group that is. But the Jewish religion, they've been around forever. They're the oldest religion. And it's because of the Torah. It's only because of the Torah. Without the Torah, there would be no such thing as Judaism. If we lost the Torah, we'd be a scattered people. There would be no Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact, it's something to say about that book, the Torah.
And yet
It's a very strong book.
And yet I take issue with the Torah because it's so anti-woman.
I
It's
don't
not.
know.
It's not good for women.
We're still here.
Why is it not good for women?
It's not
You just said yourself that you don't want to do something that, especially if a man is going to tell me to do it.
Agreed.
Right. So if it's against women are they're exempt from a lot of the commandments that men have to
I
participate
take issue
in.
with that. That's
No, but
not
we have
egalitarian
to
to
do
me.
it. But we have to do it.
Street.
You guys you can do
I
it.
don't care for the
have
double,
to.
but that's a double standard to me.
No.
You know what? When I went to Israel, when I was in college and I went for Birthright, which obviously is free, and it was like the best experience I had.
Right.
It's an amazing program. But anyway, that was separate from this other thing I did, which was through Chabad. Because at NYU, they have this lovely little, like, the rabbi's so nice to you. He'll argue with you all day long, which is not what they're really like. And so I went on this Chabad trip, real cheap, to Israel for like a week, okay? And we went to Jerusalem. We did the whole thing that you do. And I had such a pissed off negative experience in Jerusalem because I went with full respect and intent of just going and honoring the history, dressed kind of more or less like this, not with holes, not with, you know what I mean? But just like covered and normal with pants. And they wouldn't fucking let me go to the fucking wall without putting a shmata. This is in the middle of the summer, okay? It's 1,000 degrees.
On your head?
No, on my shoulders and around my waist.
Oh, did you have short sleeves?
No, I had not short. I mean, I had sleeves kind of like this, covered collarbone, covered knees. They wouldn't let me.
But
And
it's not because of you, Karen. That's where you're getting it wrong over here.
it hurt me.
No, but you shouldn't be hurt. It's not because of you. It's because of the men. If the men see a beautiful... One second. You know why a woman is exempt from all these commandments?
Why? Because we're closer to God naturally because we give birth.
They're more spiritual than men. The word
sounds like
rechem,
excuses.
You know what a rechem is in Hebrew?
No.
A rechem is a womb. A man doesn't have a womb, and a woman has a womb. Rechem are the same letters as rachem.
Nachon.
Rachem in meaning, how do you say rachem?
Mercy?
Mercy, merciful. Women have it in them. Men don't. They need all these commandments to remind them all the time that we were taken out of Egypt. You put on the tefillin to put on Egypt, and so on and so on and so on.
I understand.
Women don't need it. They have it in them.
But you know what? And as beautiful, and I've heard this explanation.
It's a
and
handicap.
when I said this, when I brought this up in Israel, when I said, why the hell do I have to cover up when I'm already respectful? I was told that, okay, and I said, that's beautiful. But you know what the consequences of that is? What the consequences are is that when I go there, my appearance, which I consider to be respectful, specifically for the purpose of going to the wall, is a problem because a man finds it to be problematic. I don't fucking buy that. So, and then all these exemptions, okay? The women, we don't have to pray 5 times, or, we don't have to pray, we don't have to study yeshiva because we naturally are closer. This is what I was told. Similar to what you said, closer to God. We have this godlike ability to
You're
give birth.
You're exempt from all of it, right? You don't have
But
to. You can.
Sure, but the way that this actually manifests is the woman's job is to stay at home, be uneducated, and have babies. And I was told this, and I was said, why aren't you married? Why are you out? Why is your hair showing?
Well,
and
they
so
have to be
I
educated.
take exemption to that.
Women have to be educated because they're raising their children. You don't want an idiot raising your children.
But doesn't it sound like an excuse? You're closer to God, so stay home. So you stay home and have even when you go to the wall, there's the man side, well lit, shaded, and then there's the woman side, small, cramped, no shade, no light.
Right.
I don't care for that.
Right.
I find that's my problem with Judaism
with the religion with the
religious
parts,
aspect
right.
of that.
Right.
Not
All right.
necessarily the tradition, but I have a big problem with that.
Listen, religion, I always say this, it's about faith. And faith is a very personal thing. Everybody's on their own journey. You can't convince somebody else about faith. You can't convince... faith is a very special thing.
Yeah.
So if we all either not find it, or some of us find it later or earlier. Some of us never find it. Some of us love it from the beginning of our lives.
Yep.
And that's what it is. That's what because it's not scientific. It makes no sense, a lot of the religion, but if you have faith and you follow it because of the faith, that's what it is.
But you know what? That it breaks my heart when I go to Israel and I'm told that like I'm doing something wrong by existing in a way that I would never go to the wall and disrespect it. I would never do that. Right. And so it's a heartbreak for me to be told that that's what I'm doing.
Right.
It hurts my and to top it off, the person telling me cover up, put this, put that was a woman dressed in, they have their tznius police, I call them, but they have their uniform of like the suit and tie.
Yeah.
So it was a woman dressed in man's clothing, which according to Torah law is against, and I told her that, and I said, but you're in a suit and tie, and she goes, you know what? I'm just doing my job, and I said, well, fair enough, all right.
You would be perfect in Tel Aviv. See, that's your town.
That is my town. That's where my family's from.
Right.
Yeah.
So Tel Aviv, you should
Jerusalem,
hang out
it ain't my town.
Right. It's not for everybody, but there's always Tel Aviv.
Right. And isn't it sad though that Jerusalem can't be for everybody? It's not for me, and that hurts my heart a little bit.
It is for everybody. You have to look at it on a different angle. Look, it said no smoking. I'm a heavy smoker. It says no smoking. If I light up a cigarette, it's going to bother somebody. People don't like the smell of smoke.
Right.
Now, I'm not trying to compare it. I might be making a bad comparison.
It's all right.
But some men who are very spiritually devoted will see a beautiful woman walking down the street, and they're automatically going to be aroused.
Is that not their problem?
It's right. So if I smoke a cigarette in here, it's your problem. Smell the smoke. I don't care.
Sure, but I'm self-contained. You can choose to avert your eyes, and then I won't be bothering you.
No, if everyone could avert their eyes, no one would have a driver's license. You're not peripheral view. You see around you. You have no choice.
You can't control your penis?
It's not a matter of... No, it's not. It's not. We're not talking about erections.
No, but we are. We're talking about the distraction of a woman existing.
It's not... No one says to kill a woman. We're not Saudi Arabia.
No, but you're saying keep out of sight. That's what you're saying. You're saying this part of the wall is for you, separated by a fence. I don't even want to look at you.
No, if so, then they would say women should not come at all. Women should, the holy of the holies in the Beis Hamikdash, when we used to have the temple, there was a maybe even a bigger place for the women than the men, because women would visit more often than the men, because they had to bring more sacrifices than the men.
But you know what? When I was there and I went and it was Shabbat, and it was Friday night, and the men had what's the word I'm looking for? We're initiating the service and everything.
Minyan, when they were having the minyan, when they were praying.
That's right, and but they were in control of it. So the women, they have the it's not exactly a wall; it's like the fence. It's a slotted fence, so you can kind of see the mechitza. You can kind of see through it.
Right.
So first of all, those women are freaking cunts. I'm sorry to please pardon my English,
why?
but
What happened? What's going on?
Towards a woman who's not religious. So I obviously was coming like a Western, not Western, whatever.
That's not okay either, but that's not okay.
They're cold, they're standoffish,
I'm sorry that you
they're
had that
rude.
experience.
And then, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm still a proud Jew. However...
Yeah, but you can't stereotype. Not all of them like that.
Sure, but
that was her experience.
But my point is that's a little bit besides the point, which is my fault. But the point was, what was so off-putting to me was as the men were having their clearly good time, like singing, dancing, enjoying the traditions, the women were quiet and peering through the slats to see what the men were doing. And that was so sad to me that's where we were at, that we were reduced to like this, peering over the side to maybe participate in what the men got to do.
Take her to a religious wedding and watch the women dance over there, man. They're going at it. You should see.
I don't know about this group about Shabbat where she's been. I don't know. It's horrible when you have it.
It
when
made
people
me
have it.
sad.
I've had experiences like that also. I've had great experiences. I've had horrible experiences.
Sure.
It's the word. We're not talking about God. We're talking about between people and people.
We're talking about people.
From one
that's
Jew
right.
to another Jew.
Right.
If it's a hurtful experience, it's very, very upsetting.
Yeah.
But you have to always remember it's Jew to Jew.
Right.
And that's the hardest thing. We call it ben adam lechavero. When those bonds are broken, it could be very, very it could be devastating. You can really tear somebody apart.
And that's what's so complicated about Israel for me, because when I go to Israel, it's not easy. It's confusing a little bit, because it's hard to reconcile how much I love Israel and how much I support and my heart is with Israel with the problem I have with this kind of monopoly of religion that the ultra-Orthodox have over there. I have a problem with that.
You have to connect to a group that speaks to you.
Which I haven't.
That you could, but they're out there. there are definitely people that will answer all your questions.
Yeah. You know, I'm off the wagon. I fell off the wagon. I grew up Orthodox, and I actually love Torah law, but I fell off the wagon. Then I went back, and I was doing well. Then I fell off the wagon again.
What do you mean by went back and doing well?
Meaning
Like
I went
adhering
back
to like kashrut and all
in
that?
regards to what I wanted, right? I wanted to become more religious.
Right.
And so when I say I was doing well, it was like I was holding on to that. And
Right.
I was doing well for myself. And then I fell off the wagon again. But I'm always looking to get back on the wagon. But right now I'm off the wagon. So but I understand, you know, for me, it's a struggle that I've had forever. And it's hopefully, I don't know how long the struggle would last. But
on the wagon for you means what?
Keeping Torah law.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Why is that important to you?
I don't know, because of my level of faith. So because of my level of faith,
Because you can be a Jew and not. You can be a Jew and not do any of that. That's what's so interesting about Judaism. You don't even have to, you know, Hillel said, you don't even have to believe in God to be a Jew. You just have to be open to the argument.
right?
Or
well,
something.
You are a Jew. If
You're a
born
Jew because you're a Jew. You can't be an excommunicated Jew.
I
That's
never
what's interesting
saw-
to me.
I never saw where he said that. but
All
I'll
right.
take your
I
word
could be
for
wrong.
it,
I'm not the brightest.
No, you
Yeah.
could be an excommunicated Jew because Jesus
Can you?
wasn't. Jesus was an excommunicated Jew.
Well, sure, but that's like saying, you know what? It's like saying a Jew for Jesus is. It's not really a Jew.
No, but
That's a
Jesus
Christian.
himself was excommunicated from the Jewish community back in the day.
But what about
before he became Jesus?
But today,
Right. That's a midrash. Right.
Is that right?
More or
Yeah.
less what happened.
So, but okay. So for
Theory.
today, if I said now I'm agnostic about God, whatever. I'm not. That's not my whole thing. I'm not anti, but I'm agnostic. Okay, and I do some traditions, but not others. I light candles. I say prayers. I pick and choose. I'll eat bacon, whatever. But you couldn't kick me out, right? Like you could. Who could tell
No.
me, Karen? You know what? You fucked up. You're not a Jew. No one, right? Isn't that the beauty of Judaism?
Well, I don't know if that's the beauty of Judaism.
But like, if you're a Muslim and you renounce Islam or whatever, that's it for you.
Oh, right.
If you're a Christian, you say, "Well, I don't believe in Jesus anymore," then you're not a Christian.
Interesting.
But if you're a Jew and you say, "I'm not sure I believe in God. I'm not sure if I take the literal word of the Torah as truth," you're still a Jew.
Yes and no. It depends on how religious you are. If you're familiar with Jewish law, and if you do something like of karet, let's say you're observant.
It's very deep. You're going.
It's very deep, but I'm gonna get really deep really quick.
This could take hours and
It-
days.
hours and
this
days.
is very, very deep. It's very deep concepts.
Well, that's
that can
another
go
thing
on
I
and
like
on.
about Judaism is it could take hours and days. That's what's so interesting about it.
but in the
we do
long-
have like a second.
But in the long run, you might find that it's not exactly what you're looking for. The answers that you get might not be exactly your cup of tea.
yeah, it's another fear of mine.
Yeah, there are different aspects, like achicha, it's oseh maaseh amecha. That's I'm saying in Hebrew. It means your brother. It says v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself. So it says l'reacha means your neighbor, someone who does what you do in the same aspects. So if a person goes and deliberately desecrates things in the name of desecrating, that's problematic.
Yeah.
But then who would
Spiritually.
say?
Not everyone does
Sure.
it. In other words, if you say, okay, you know, it's like if you say like you're saying, I do something, so then you don't do things for the name of desecrating.
I don't.
You
no.
do things for the name of not understanding.
No, I do things for the name of independence. I do things because I do what I
so
do.
that's because you don't understand. It's like if someone goes and says,
Well-
yes.
Well, there's a lot to
'cause
learn.
We
I mean,
do,
I don't
we do
even
not.
know what
No one understands like Moses.
Okay,
right?
no,
'Cause
I
Moses,
understand your
right,
meaning.
right.
I understand.
So,
right.
and
I
we've
understand.
only gone down since then.
Sure.
Further away and further away. So we don't know the bottom line of every commandment, which are.
But the beauty also to me is that Judaism is not just halacha and it's not just Torah, it's the Jewish people. So if I do what I do as a Jew, that's part of Judaism as a whole, is it not? And so are you, and so are you.
It's definitely part of it. Yeah.
But how could the Jews have
and you definitely
subsisted for so many thousands of years if Judaism wasn't also Jews and not just the Jewish text?
So being Jewish, it's very interesting that you're asking this thing. Being Jewish, if a person is black, could he be Jewish? He could be Jewish.
Sure.
If a person lives in I don't know, Australia, Could it be Jewish?
Yeah.
It could be Jewish. So it's not defined by it's not defined by a homeland.
That's right.
And it's not defined by a race.
That's right.
And it's not defined by male or female. That's obvious. And there are other things on the list. I'm sorry, I'm not getting them all. But however you get to it in the long run, you're still a Jew. Whereas if you say an Irish person who doesn't live in Ireland, then he's not. He's after,
and then their kids won't be after a couple of generations.
They're not going to be Irish anymore.
Right.
And if a black person will marry an interracial marriage, then sooner or later something's going to change. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same thing over there.
Well, this is a perfect time for us to take a break. So when we come back, we're going to call my friend Tommy O'Malley, who you guys have heard on Crass to Mouth and Racehorse before. He just literally today got back from Israel.
Oh, fantastic. We're going to talk about geographics. We're going to talk about the country itself.
We're going to talk about why he insists on calling it Palestine, which this is a person that I love, but I told him, I can show you the text message. I said, you are a monster for saying that.
All right.
But we're going to get to the bottom why. We'll be right back.
Check in and subscribe to your favorite show on comedyvoices.com. Powered by digital media. Find your voice. Stand Up Labs and UCB Comedy lead the way in bringing you one laugh after another on comedyvoices.com. A digital media production.
All right, so we're back. And now I have got Tommy on the phone. Tommy, say hey.
Hey.
Hey. This is Go-To Gay Tommy from Racehorse and Crass to Mouth. And you, Tommy, just got back from Israel today, right?
From a crazy, very short but amazing trip. I was in Israel for 4.5 days.
For 4.5 days. So here's who we have. It's me. It's my friend Danny Cohen,
Hi.
comic extraordinaire.
Hi.
His brother, Ronnie Cohen.
Who's in town? He's in New York for a week. He lives in Israel.
Who's in town, lives in Israel, jumped on the
amazing.
mic.
Where in Israel?
Jerusalem. Where did you spend? Where did you spend your 4 days, Tommy?
So where were you specifically?
So I really just went to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and I spent most of my time in Tel Aviv, obviously, because I was busy looking for a husband.
Obviously.
But Jerusalem was undercover my favorite place.
We were just
Jerusalem
talking
was
about
mind-blowing.
Jerusalem.
Yeah, Jerusalem it's so spiritual and old and romantic. It's beautiful, isn't it?
I mean, it's something that I think everybody should see.
Yeah.
And it's also being an ignorant American who had no concept of what it's like over there. I mean, everyone is just together in Jerusalem, especially in the old city. Everyone is just all there. And that was really interesting to see how it works. And everyone's sort of invested in keeping that place safe and running.
Yeah.
And then, I really wanted to go to Palestine, which I will call Palestine. Can I just tell a really funny
What
story?
is Palestine?
So what's
When
Palestine?
you say you want to go, where is Palestine?
Well, I mean, there's a clear border. You have to go through checkpoints if you want to go to Bethlehem or Jericho or any of those
Ramallah
places
or Gaza. Right.
Okay, because I thought was, because before you left, when we were talking a few weeks ago, and you were like, I'm going to visit Palestine, and it took me back, so I was like, oh, you mean Israel? Because you were like, I got a ticket to Palestine, so I've never heard of such a thing.
I said I got a ticket to Israel, and
All
I
right.
want to go to Palestine.
Right, because Palestinian.
Karen's immediate response to this, which is one of the funniest things anyone's ever said to me, she goes, Palestine isn't a place, it's called Israel.
Because I thought that you were being so lefty that you were calling Israel Palestine as a...
No.
You meant like Gaza. You meant like Palestine. Not as opposed to Israel.
I wanted to go see where Jesus was supposedly born.
That's
I was
right.
raised on
The Goyim and the Jesus.
Right.
That's right.
Bethlehem.
I keep forgetting. You know what? That's my bad.
Can I tell you? I really... Okay, so this is my impression of... So I met this guy from New York while I was there, and I'm not going to claim what he said, but I think it's so funny. He sort of described the old city in Jerusalem as a religious Disneyland, because you can kind of go to any land you want to go and poke in and out. But the place that I really felt that the most theme parky stuff there, due respect to my fellow Christians, is the Christian quarter. All of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. There's just something that's I really wanted to connect. I wanted to have a spiritual moment and feel connected to my roots there. But everything from Via Dolorosa, which is the Stations of the Cross, which are like really important when you're Christian, up to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is like built on the site that Jesus supposedly was crucified. Like it all just felt so, I don't know, like a capitalist venture. Like you could touch, you could see, you could kiss anything you wanted basically there. Where I felt the most spiritual, interestingly enough, was at the Western Wall. Like that's where I actually felt some sort of like divine presence, and that was really beautiful. And also the place that I felt the most at peace in the Old City, the place that I thought was the most peaceful and like reflective was the Muslim Quarter. Was just really, there was like a calm in the Muslim Quarter that was really beautiful to experience, because that's not what I expected, probably because I have prejudices.
What were you expecting?
I was expecting like aggressive sales, and just like people like giving.
Well,
you,
yeah. Well,
Fair enough.
Well, there are aggressive sales. Did you go through the Arab Shuk?
Oh my God, it's very aggressive. It's very, but you know what?
Yeah.
Every salesperson should go to the Old City to learn how to sell, because they're amazing.
They are amazing. They're amazing salespeople. Right? Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Was it
So
weather?
like
Was
living in
the
Jerusalem
calm
now?
there or weather oriented? How was the weather when you were there? Maybe everyone was
it was
indoors.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I was walking around in a t-shirt. I mean, I don't know.
Oh,
like,
so the weather was
Celsius,
nice.
but
So the
it
weather was
probably about
decent.
like, yeah, it was like 60 degrees
Oh, so
Fahrenheit.
people were out. I was thinking maybe everyone was home.
But Tommy, you were there with all the you were there. There were stabbings like every day. No.
Well, apparently, but I didn't. I mean, I was fine. One
Well,
guy
of
asked
course,
me what
you're
my
here. We're
religion was.
talking. Right. Right. No, you're okay.
How did you feel that like the climate was there? Or like were people fearful? Was there like were people on alert, or did it seem like just business as usual?
Okay, so we go out like I think it's called the Lions Gate of the Old City, which takes you like right out to the back where like Gethsemane. Like I only know the Christian sites, but like where the garden that Jesus was in, and like you can walk up the hill and go to the Church of the Assumption, which is also important for Muslims. It's very important. It's like where Jesus supposedly ascended into heaven, and like Muslims also believe
It's
that.
the Mount of Olives.
because
over there.
Oh, is it?
Huh?
It's by the
Harazim.
Mount of Olives.
Yeah.
You see the whole summit. You
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
the whole
exactly.
cemetery.
You have
right
to walk 10,000 steps to get to it, and
Did
it's
you-
really, honestly, in my opinion, not worth it.
Did you notice that all the graves though there are Jewish? They will have like Jewish writing on it, and they're over.
Yeah,
like,
what is
they're
that?
they're
Our father
over
is buried there.
Hundreds of years old. So I mean, they didn't import them from some foreign country to bury them there. They must have been there at some time.
Right, Israel. Not
Israel,
Palestine.
right,
Jews
whatever.
have been there since the 19th century. It's not like 1948. Suddenly, every Jew showed up and was like, "All right, we're going to claim this." Like,
Well, a
Jews
lot
have
of
been
people.
going
A
there.
lot of people think that. By the way, a lot of people think that.
Yeah, they're saying.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just ignorant, because obviously Jews have been going there. It's only since 48, and then really like 67, when they did the borders, is when everything got really crazy. And that's like, between 48 and 67, I think is really the critical time. As I understand history, I mean, and I'm really very ignorant, I would say.
Well, me
But
too.
like, there were a lot of mistakes between 48 and 67, because that's when like Jews had been living all over North Africa and the Arab countries and being fine. And then once like 48 happened and Israel became Israel,
Right.
like that's when all the
Right.
Jews started getting kicked out of Egypt and
And you
Morocco
should know the Jews in the Middle Eastern country were fine, but they had to pay a lot of extra taxes because they were Jews living in Muslim countries.
Well, you're talking about we're fine. You're talking about just the past 300 years.
Right, the past 300
Because
years since the Spanish.
1,000 years ago in the Arab countries, the Jews were not fine.
Right, and since the Spanish Inquisition.
The Mohiddins, when they went on the Muslim crusade, the Islamic crusades,
Right.
they slaughtered Jews.
Right, no, we're talking about
left
the
and
past
right.
300 years since
Oh,
after the
'cause they're
Spanish
different eras,
Inquisition.
you're definitely
They're
right.
different eras, right?
So-
yes.
So Tommy, when you texted me today, when I go, let's talk about you calling it Palestine, you go, well, I still call it Palestine, which was hilarious, by the way. Were you referring to just actual Palestinian areas, or are you referring to Israel? Because that's what was confusing.
Yeah,
me.
no, because okay, so I also said to you that like I was like I'm a Zionist with a question mark, because what I
Yeah.
do
So are
feel-
you now a Zionist?
Well, I don't know what that word means, right?
It
I know what it means. but I don't
you
actually
think
know.
that the Jewish state has a right to exist in Israel,
Or do you think it
Okay,
should be
if
run
that's
into the sea?
simplest
and the Jews
definition of it,
eradicated and
yeah.
set ablaze.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, period. I think the Jews.
No,
have a
because
right
if you
to
go-
exist.
if you
So
go
does that
to-
make me a Zionist?
Right. No, I'm sorry to interrupt, Tommy, because if you go to a lot of the protests, a lot of the lefty liberal protests, you'll see they're always chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What does that mean? It means that they want all the Jews run into the ocean, into
Which
the
is why
sea.
there's still no two
maybe
states.
Some people think that, but here's a question I have. Right, so you can look into the settlements. You can see the settlements, and you can see Israeli flags going up in the settlements. Like people are moving into the settlements. So like, I don't know about that. Like that, I feel like
I agree that that's
two-state
problematic.
Solution,
But what does this mean? What does this mean? Who made up this word, settlements?
I don't know who's responsible for the 67 borders.
No, what is this word, settlements?
Right.
You know, I'm not going to say pro or con for these things, but who made up this word? The word settlement means like.
I agree, it's loaded.
It's you're not supposed to be here, and you're settlers.
Yeah.
So your time is limited.
Okay, but it all stems back to 1967. Is that wrong?
Well, there was a war, and they conquered. Because they were attacked, they took over, and they got the land. That's that would happen anywhere in the world.
Well, the reason that
if Mexico attacked Texas, and then America took over, and then continued and went into Mexico, they would be.
Never mind. Why Mexicans? What about American? What about Navajos in the?
That's like a faulty comparison.
No, that's exactly what happened. It's a great example. No, it's a great example. Yes, they blindly attacked. It was an attack.
Absolutely not.
Remember the Alamo.
Mexico from them. Hello.
No, I'm giving you an example of Mexico to Texas. I'm just saying, like,
if American Indians.
If Canada attacked the United States and we went into Canada, we would be conquering land from someone who attacked.
But the only difference between anyway, regardless, I think that
it's very important to understand the spoils of war. That's international law that will explain everything. It's not
fair enough.
Okay,
but my point is that for the past 50 years, right, there's been this agreement, sort of, that like this is where Arab Muslims can live in Israel. And Israel's all around Palestine. As I understand it, this is where they can live. And now Jews are moving in there. And
you're talking about specifically the West Bank and Gaza.
That's what I'm talking about, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Well, look, if you have to go back to 48...
You're talking about the Golan Heights also, and that's part of Israel, where Israelis live and Israeli towns are. That's not going back to anywhere.
There are places, what I didn't know, because I'm ignorant again, is that there are places all over Israel where there are Muslims and Jews living
That's right.
in the same area.
That's right.
Haifa, there's Muslims and there's Jews.
And it works. That works.
Yaffo.
Yep.
Yaffo also, right? Tel Aviv, right by Yaffo, right?
Yeah. Yaffo is like famously beautiful for their Muslim Israeli architecture, and it's like it works beautifully.
There's just no room. People came from the Middle East, and the Jewish people who came to Israel after '67 is because of the Arab neighbors that they had in Yemen, in Iraq, in Persia, Iran, which is the Iran of today. Morocco was still okay, but even a lot of the Moroccans, they all came to Israel because of the feeling that they got in their native Arab countries. They had to leave the place they were living, and when they come to Israel and they don't want to live in a city. They want to go to the suburbs. They want to live they want to develop the land, and they're being called settlers because they want to be how do you say michashed? They want to settle the land.
They want to settle land because it's empty land.
But I think that the settlements now people have a problem with are the ones that are right smack in the middle of where Palestinians are living in a concentrated area. So that's a purposeful settling of ultra-Orthodox people to break up the areas of Palestinian habitation.
But why?
And that seems a little bit problematic.
If you don't want to stir a conflict, then I would agree with you, Karen. I would agree with you. But why are the Palestinians so against it? What's the matter with it? The land is barren. There's no one there.
Yeah.
Take a look at. I want to ask you an old question. Take a look at ancient Egypt, and you see really photo pictures, the ancient of 300. Whenever they had cameras on it, 200 artworks. You see, Egypt
hieroglyphics
had had fantastic bridges and waterways and aqueducts and sewage and the whole works. And you do the same thing in Iran. They have buildings there that date from over 500-600 years, even 1,000 years that until today are existing. But you look at pictures of Israel in the Palestine, there's nothing there. There's nothing. There's
Well,
absolutely.
it was all farming. It was all farmers.
What farming? There's there's
desert,
nobody.
it's swampland.
There's nobody. Look
It's
at
nothing. You
look
can't.
at Samuel.
The farmland that
There's
you
no-
see
the
now
Samuel
was
Clemens.
made by Israelis.
Because they excel
Yeah.
in
Mark
I don't
Twain.
know about
Mark
agriculture.
Twain. Mark
I
Twain.
don't know about that.
But you
I
know
don't
the expression,
It's
they
a-
made the desert bloom. They came there and they planted trees so that it could be habitable.
But these
the
are facts.
Israelis made Israel.
Yeah, these are facts. You look
Mark
at pictures
Twain,
of desert.
Mark Twain, who has absolutely no Jewish background, he once took a trip to he writes Palestine because that's what it was called then, and look for the story. It's called the Beggar's Pipe or something like that, and he talks about his trip in Israel. He says there is nothing there. He said we were followed by kids shouting, "Give us money for whatever bakshish," they said in Arab, just free money. And he states without any Zionistic ideology behind it, he says there is absolutely even the Jewish writing. If you go into the Jewish scripts, the rabbis of 400 years ago, they told the Jewish people, don't go to Israel because if you go there, you're going to die of hunger. That was the statement.
I mean,
back
people
then.
were living in tents.
There
I mean,
was
it was
no
really
But
a
that's the
Nobody
thing,
here.
Tommy. You went to a place that used to be a shithole that was then turned into a beautiful, habitable place by the people who needed it.
Who had no
and
choice,
now,
who needed it.
And now people are saying, get the fuck out, because now there's this other group of people who could be absorbed by billions of other people, but
Okay,
won't
but I
be.
also think that, you can't deny that Muslims were there. Okay,
No,
and so
they were
what
there.
The
Sure.
analogy that I think is the most
But it was fewer than
apt for this is like gentrification. Like,
it's
that's
not
what's happening.
gentrification,
People-
Tommy. Get the fuck
No,
out of here.
it's not
We're at the
gentrification,
time
it's similar.
that
we're a group with more money and more access to resources.
more money. This
is
was after World
displacing a
War
group.
II. The Jewish population had been decimated.
They
There
had
wasn't any
nothing.
money.
They had
nothing.
nothing.
They
I'm
had
talking
no.
about
They had
now.
no
I'm talking
hair
about
on their
now,
head.
Today.
But
Hello.
now because they built it up.
Today, it's a paradise for Muslims who live in Israel.
That's the
It's a
beauty.
paradise.
There is not a Palestinian who lives in Israel who has the benefits of living in Israel who would go back to living in a Palestinian territory. There's not one who would choose
Okay,
that.
but
It's shitty over
understand
there.
that there's like quite a difference. Like even though, I think culturally there's a difference between people that are living in, say, Bethlehem versus Muslims that are living in Bethlehem than Muslims who are living in Haifa or Eilat or something. Like I think that they've been ghettoized in a way. I think that's what the effect is. That's why it feels like
Who brought it upon? Who
gentrification.
brought it upon them?
Where did that come
I
from,
don't
though? The
know. I don't
Israelis
have that.
didn't impose that on them.
I'll tell you what happened. I mean, if you want to know, these are facts. You can just learn about it. They're refugees because they never took when in 48 the Jewish people who were there, they were offered to take half of, not even half, less than half. It's less than what they have now. The land of Israel, and they accepted, and the Palestinians, the Arabs who were there, they weren't Palestinians, they were Arabs, because there was no such thing as Palestinians.
So what's the difference between a Palestinian and an Arab? Just meaning that they weren't born? Who was there before, when it was called Palestine?
No, they didn't
There
want
weren't-
Israel. Palestine is someone who didn't want Israeli sovereignty.
There was
Right.
no Palestine. Palestine was the name
British
given to
mandate.
the area by the Romans on purpose because the Philistines were the mortal enemies of the Jews
Right.
to purposely say, go fuck yourself. Now we're going to name it after the people you hate the most. That's where it came from. There were no Palestine. It wasn't named after a nation of people.
Right, and then after the Ottoman Empire took over, the British Mandate, it was British Mandate Palestine. So it was called Palestine British Mandate. It has nothing
But
to
in
do.
48, did people? I know that, but like in 48, did Arab Muslims that were living in what we call Palestine, what we called Palestine then, what we now call Israel, did they identify as Arabs or did they identify as Palestinians?
No,
As Arabs.
They never had
There was
a
no
flag.
such thing as
They
Palestinian,
never
yeah.
had a flag. They never
No.
had.
Right.
They didn't have
Arafat
a
was
no
started.
coins.
That's right.
No coins. They never used. They used the Jordanian dinar.
Palestine is
Used
a
it.
political term.
Arafat started Palestine.
They
Right.
never had anything.
It's
which
a
was in
political
67.
term to take up a cause against Israel.
In 1967, Palestine was created.
There weren't that's the big fallacy. That's what bothers me when I hear Palestine this and that, is that it's not like the Jewish people who go back thousands of years and then another lineage of Palestinians that goes back thousands of years. This was a modern political construct. The Jews do go
Okay, but
back
the- okay,
forever.
regardless of the
Palestinians are a new
Palestine
thing.
But Arab Muslims living on that land is not a modern political construct. Like, that is who was living there.
You know what?
Right.
You know
and
what?
they became refugees because of the war, because of Jordan. And that's what the West Bank is all about.
And you know what? The reason they live in such hideous poverty is because, Abu Mazen, what's his name?
From Hamas?
Yes.
Yeah, the leader of Hamas.
The leader of Hamas, Abu Mazen, built himself a $13 million mansion, okay, with foreign aid or whatever, while his people still live in piles of rubble because somebody could starve and live in houses that are a pile of rocks. And he built himself a $13 million house.
Not to speak of Yasser Arafat.
The Israelis didn't do that to them, okay? They did that to them. And that's why Palestine, and I'm not yelling
It's
at
a
you,
very
Tommy, I
sad
love you, but
situation.
that's
Right.
why that's so emotional, you know what I mean? To
Yes.
hear the word
It's interesting.
Palestine.
We don't grow up in this country learning this history the same way you do. So it's interesting to talk to.
I had to educate myself too a little bit too. We were just talking about. I don't
Yeah,
know
me
shit
too.
either.
I was sort of neutral until the attack of the whole Gaza problem 2 summers ago. Then I started educating myself because I realized I was on Facebook and I saw so many people anti-Israel, and I was in shock. I was like, how can there be so many people anti-Israel? It was crazy to me, and it seemed so many people were misinformed, and that's when I started educating myself because I wanted to know.
It's really easy. It's really easy to like just code anti-Semitism and being anti-Israel because when I was going, I can't tell you how many of my lefty friends were like, "Why would you go there? Like, why are you supporting that state? Like, you can't go there. It's immoral."
Yeah, it's the same people who won't buy a soda stream or whatever.
That's amazing to
I know.
hear.
No, that actually, one of my friends actually brought that up. No, but I will say this though. Like, I really wanted to go to Bethlehem, and there are cab drivers right outside of the old city that offer to take you. But the guy that I was like kind of touring around with didn't want to go, and I kind of regret not going because I do wish that I could see what it's like.
You know, I don't think there were any Christians left in Bethlehem. I think all the Arabs got them out. They're no longer.
I don't think that there are either, but they keep the Church of the Nativity running.
Well, you didn't see what went on there Christmas Eve. They almost burned the place down, the churches down over there. There was a lot of
this is also
problem.
something that I find really interesting. Like, every Israeli that I met, and I really only, I mean, this is maybe self-selecting, but I hung out with like all Sephardic Israelis, Sephardic Jews living in Israel. But
well, you're talking to 3 almost Sephardic Jews.
Yeah,
here.
we get it. The good ones, as we call them.
Yeah. The spicy
Are you all
ones.
Sephardic?
Right. Yeah, we are. We're all Sephardic.
The
here.
fuckable ones. Yeah, go ahead.
That's very educated of you that you're able to say Sephardic, though,
Right.
because no one knows that.
No, Tommy's
Sephardic.
the fucking best. Yeah, Tommy's not a bigot. He just, he just went to Israel.
No, but just to know what Sephardic
David
is.
was
true.
Yeah, I
an
agree.
Orthodox Sephardic Jew for almost 5 years. I lived with him.
Yeah.
And so then, of course, like, I ended up sleeping with a couple while I was over there because everyone in Israel you just want to have sex with. Everyone's gorgeous. It's
I
unbelievable.
know.
It's
Isn't that
literally
just sick?
the most.
And then you come back to New York and you see what garbage Jews we're dealing with here. Not personality wise, but just unfuckable. You know what I mean? I've been trying to. The most attractive Jewish man I ever met in my life, ever to this day. Now he's a surgeon. It breaks my heart. Is related to me by blood, and that was the end of that. So it really hurts me.
I mean, but how enough that your kids will come out a little funny, or
It
is like,
doesn't matter.
Sort of creepy, but all right.
Creepy. This is okay. I thought you guys would be on my side. All right. Yeah, maybe it's a little creepy.
I'm abstaining.
I'd still hit that. Ronnie's on my side. That's what that means.
Yeah, he's like, why? He's shut down.
So the bottom line is, Tommy, are you or are you not a Zionist? And are you happy that you went? And do you get it now? Why Israel is important to us now, to us Israelis who love it?
Okay, so am I a Zionist? If we're going with the definition we set forth at the beginning, so the Jews have a right to a state in that
and that
part
the
of the
state
world,
should be
yes.
Israel, yes.
Yes, and that the state should be called Israel, yes. But I also believe
in
Palestine has a right
Israel.
to exist.
How about the
Yes, but I
capital
also
be
believe
called
Palestine has a
Jerusalem?
right to exist.
Tommy, you might have to leave the left liberal party now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Tommy,
You're not going to be accepted, Tommy.
You're one of us now.
You're going to have to be like just a regular liberal. Regular liberal.
That's not me. Listen, I was like a Republican when I was growing up. I met George W. Bush right after 9/11 and cried when I shook his hand. So
Oh, what a
I wouldn't do
sweetheart
that
you
now.
are.
Oh, you traveled the entire spectrum, no pun intended. Wow, from left to right to right to
I was
left.
straight back then too.
Oh.
No, so yes, I do think that. I do understand why people love it. I want to go back ASAP.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go this summer.
Good. I'll go with you.
Yeah, I really want to go to Pride, but I don't think I can make that happen. I'm going to go, I think, in August.
What,
But
to
yes,
Tel
you
Aviv
should.
Pride or Jerusalem Pride? Somebody got stabbed in Jerusalem
No,
Pride.
Tel Aviv Pride. Don't
Jerusalem
go to
has a pride.
Jerusalem.
I
I don't know. Jerusalem shouldn't have a pride, but Tel Aviv.
It's a heartache.
No, Grindr in Jerusalem
Is that
was
right?
a little
Yeah, it
bad,
is.
actually.
Yeah, I think so.
Grindr in Jerusalem, you said no good?
It wasn't as good. No, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem.
Tel Aviv has got to
Grindr
be
is
where
like-
it's at if you're trying to grinder it up.
I got a lot of black hats in with like black profiles,
Really?
like black screens. Yeah. I got like
Fascinating.
3 of them.
Listen, everybody
in
has their
Jerusalem.
stuff. Everybody has
God.
we're human
Everyone has their
beings.
stuff.
Everybody's got stuff.
Yes, of
Tommy,
course.
if you don't come back next week and tell me more about this grinder black hat thing, I'm gonna have to come after you.
Yeah. Oh, trust I will. I'll show you their pictures too. I probably still have them on my phone.
Please, for the love of God. All right, we got to
Yeah.
wrap up before they yell at me. But Tommy, I love
This
you.
was
and
so interesting talking to all 3 of you. Thank
you so
I
much
really
for calling
appreciate
Good
in
it.
and
talking to you,
entertaining
Tommy.
Bye, Tommy.
Yeah.
and then
All right.
thank you, Ronnie, for jumping on the mic for no reason. I mean, I know you weren't expecting it, but thank you. Danny,
Yeah, thanks,
I
Ronnie. Nice
adore
meeting
you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tommy, I love Tommy. You want to plug anything?
Do I have to plug anything? I don't know. I mean, you just at Tommy O'Malley on Twitter. I put all my shit up there.
Okay, honey. Thank you so much for calling
Yeah.
in. What about you, Danny?
I'm Danny Cohen World on Facebook.
Fuck yeah, you are.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. This has been